size. And still got quite a few people hopping on the webinar here. So before we get started, I'd like to take a, a quick poll on, in terms of online marketing or even design, if you can give me a shout out in the questions and let me know how many clients on average over the last year have you onboarded per month? And also, next to it, how many clients ideally would you like to be onboarding, say, next year, for example? That's legitimate, something that you really do think that you could handle. Don't be shy, give it a shout out. Can't be too little, can't be too high. Just started, some saying 2, some saying 3, some saying 5 a month, some saying 10 a month. Bonnie says 3 but want, it's moving quickly, 3 but want 30. Barry says 4 a month, but ultimately I want 20 per month, okay. Brian says 3 per month, ideally 20 per month. Lane says 30 to 50. I believe you, Lane. Okay. The highest number I've seen so far goes to Lane at 50. Okay. Courtney says 100 a month. There you go, Courtney. All right. So to kind of introduce this webinar, because this is it's kind of an important webinar for me to be having, and I'm happy that you're all in attendance on this webinar, because when you go out there and you do your competitive research, who are you doing your research on? Anyone? Any shout outs? If you're a local marketing provider, who are you analyzing as your competition? In terms of landscape, okay, I don't know the names to them probably, but in terms of landscape, are they the other people that are about your size? Are they the people that are in your geographic location? How are you landscaping your competitive analysis? Not very many people are speaking up. You should be. You should be analyzing your competition anyways. Stuart says, similar size competitors locally, right? Geographic location, local presence, okay. Brian, maybe predicting what I'm gonna say, says larger companies where I'd like to be. Deborah says, whoever shows up for my keywords, spoken like a real SEO company owner. There you go. Yusef, local companies the size you want to grow. Morty, the ones who are on top of the first page of search engines. Jim says, just lost a client to large marketing firm. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is about analyzing a different type of competitor than you're probably used to analyzing. There's not very many people that really look into Yellow Pages or the larger marketing corporations in the United States. And maybe that's because maybe you don't want to be that big, or maybe you do want to be that big, but you think that it's unrealistic to be analyzing what it is that they're doing. But what's interesting over the last several years of speaking to thousands of marketing company owners is I've realized that the mindset is completely in the competitive analysis of your other competition that is similar to your size. But I think what's missing is the understanding of what the large marketing corporations are doing. Because the small, medium online marketing mindset, it's easy to get caught up in the technical details of things, the news that's going on, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to look into the larger marketing corporations. And what I'm wanting everyone to be able to do during this webinar in terms of your mindset is, I'm hoping on what your mindset is going to be is, if they can be so big, and if they're doing that, and I'm better, then what do I need to be doing to get bigger? Because there's going to be a lot that you can learn from this webinar and what we're going to look at. But most of what we're going to be going over, it's obvious, it's been right in front of you the entire time. I'm just hoping that this webinar will really let it sink in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and start analyzing some of the larger companies. And not that I have any problems with these companies, to be perfectly honest. I understand well enough big business and how it works and how it runs. And every single really big business runs about the exact same way in terms of their methodologies and how they handle themselves and clients and attrition and sales. Most of them are very, very similar. So I'm not trying to dog any of these companies. I just want to show you similarities between them. So let's take Yodel, for example. Has anyone, oh, Yoda, for example. Is that Yoda or is it supposed to be Yodel? I think I might have made a typo. 1 second here. Has anyone ever lost a client to them? That is Yodel. I put in Yoda. Well, that's funny. Anyways, that's Yodel. Courtney said Yodel. Kyle said that he did lose a client to Yodel. You know what's interesting about Yodel, and it's not Yoda. Whoops. Actually, let me fix that really quick. That's bothering me. I must have been thinking of, what is that? Is that Star Wars, Star Trek? What is that? Yoda? Star Wars? Yoda. I don't know. I didn't get a lot of sleep, everybody. Evidently not. All right, moving on. I'll have to update all the other slides. Yodel, whenever you get a new domain name, Yodel contacts them. Did you know that? Your client that you're marketing for, they go and buy a domain name, they're going to get contacted probably by Yodel. You can do that. Pretty smart, right? So lesson learned there. What do? Buy the domain name for your client and transfer it over to them, right? Okay. Kyle says that they promise first page ranks in 2 months. Hey, why not, right? Did they say what keyword for? But you could get page 1 rankings in 2 months, especially with the new metric system. No problem. So who is Yodel? Are they in? Do they offer the same type of services as you do? Yes and no. They claim that they offer the same type of services that you do, but they don't. Interesting, isn't it? So let's read about a little bit about them and what they say. They say it's really simple, and that's why they're the #1 independent provider of online marketing services to local businesses in the United States. That they're saying they're better than all of you. And this is kind of how their jargon goes. When we determine the right combination of ad placements, blah, 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 moving on. We have staff of quantitative experts who build and consistently refine our algorithm to enhance results. And while this work happens behind the scenes, you have access to a team of marketing experts. In other words, call us if you have a problem, if you can get a hold of us. Very simple, right? So what kind of services do they offer? They do offer local optimization. It's pretty automated, but they claim that they have people full-time monitoring all of it and adjusting their local algorithms. They have SEO methodologies, but that's really put into local optimization, which is through automation. They have their monitoring, but so do you, and so does Google Webmaster and Bing Webmaster and Google Analytics, which is free. They have PPC services, which are automated, and they do have web design, which is evidently handled by very highly creative professionals that are able to design their website in 24 hours. I don't know where they're getting their employees from, but I want to know, right? Clearly, it's an automated setup, right? But you see how they spin it. Now, let's look at what their feedback is. So they're the best in the. I have to escape out of this. Sorry. They claim that they're the best in the United States, but if I size up on this and scroll down, you're going to see 150 BBB complaints, and you're going to see their bad reviews up and down all over the place, right? You can do your own research on this. I'm just scrolling through it so you can see they have a very bad reputation. That's not going to be debatable whatsoever, okay? So from this, let's look at what they say they are. They say that they're the #1, right? They have really bad reviews online. They're not providing the services that they say they provide because it's through automation. But let's look at their growth statistics. Are they #1? Are they really that good? Well, if you look at the growth statistics, they actually line up pretty strong to what they say they are in terms of their growth and their success. Over the last 8 years, they've been able to grow to where they're going to be making an estimated $180 million in 2014. Their strategy: sell faster than you lose clients. Sales type: hard, fast sales. Sales call center? Yes, absolutely. So classic example, big company, poor level of services, hard sales. To point out, the bad reviews don't stop them from moving forward. The poor services do not stop them from moving forward. bumps in project management do not stop them from moving forward. This company pushes hard, and it pushes very, very hard on sales, and it makes them one of the most successful in the United States. Am I saying to do it? No, but it's something that you really need to be aware of if you want to grow to be a big company, which is what the big companies are doing. Let me give you another example. Reach Local helps small and mid-sized businesses acquire and retain customers online. Offers comprehensive online marketing, reporting services, including search engine marketing, display advertising, remarketing, online marketing analytics. They provide SEO, web design, PPC, and video production. Does that sound like any of you, right? Same services, correct? Same services? Same services, yeah. Now, what about their feedback? Well, total complaints, claims lost, 86,000. That's not good. And that's from one website. Another one, I could zoom out and scroll up and down, or you can just do your own research. This is huge. They have a lot of ripoff reports, a lot. You want to go onto another review site, up and down, all over the place. Simply awful. The worst company you could ever hire to handle any aspect of your online marketing. Upper management is always out to lunch. You will never get past the front lines who are mediocre. They sell, they step away, they don't fulfill the product on the level of what they say they're going to be fulfilling it on. And what do they have? They have a really bad reputation. So what would happen to you if you did the same thing? I don't know. Would this happen to you if you did the same thing? How about over 10 years, you make an estimated $500 million in 2013. What's the sales type? Hard, fast sales. Strategy, sell faster than you lose clients. Total advertisers at their servicing, 24,000. How many salespeople do they have? 957. They're growing by 100 salesmen a year. 100 salesmen a year. How many project managers do you think they grow by per year? I'll bet not very many. They grow their sales side on everything. So assuming that they have 28,000 advertisers at the end of Q4 and at roughly 518 million for the year, that would mean advertisers each paying an annual average of $18,500 to Reach Local. Is that the same that you're looking for in terms of the revenue coming through on a client? What is that? Let me do some quick math on this. Where's my calculator? Can someone do some math for me? 18,500 divided by 12. What's that? Anyone? Steve, did you really already do that? 1,500 a month? Is 1,500 a month what you're looking for? Is that a good client for you? $1,500 a month? Does that makes sense, right? $1,500 a month. Well, why are they making $500 million a year and able to sell a $1,500 a month product and get horrible reviews all over the place online, legendary for their bad reviews? But they're closing sales and growing faster than nearly any online marketing company out there. That's what I really want you to start digesting and getting into your head for the people that are, a little bit hesitant about jumping into this. Ricardo says because people are stupid. Well, even at that, the typical small to medium online marketing company, the number one barrier is sales. Number one barrier is sales. You're worried about what you can fulfill. You're worried about product fulfillment. You're worried about maybe not being able to live up to the client's expectations. They don't do any of that, and they're making $500 million a year. That's crazy. So for the people out there that are small, medium online marketing companies saying, it's hard for me to get clients, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to handle this, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. This is a company with a horrible reputation, a poor level of services, going out there and knocking down $500 million a year in the United States. That's wild. So you got to really, really pay attention to that to be able to realize what your capabilities are if you're offering anything better than what they are. Okay, what about YP, Yellow Pages? Everyone's heard of Yellow Pages. Isn't Yellow Pages great? This is an example of YPCA. Their average client spending per quarter is around $3,000, so it's a little bit lower than Reach Local, but it's still up there, right? It's all around in the ballpark of between $1,000 and $1,500 So a lot of you, whenever you think of the big volume marketing companies, you think of, well, they're offering $99 a month. They're offering $50 a month. I can't compete with that. But what you don't see behind the scenes is the upsells. That's what you don't see, because on public information that you can get your hands on all these companies, they're all averaging per local client between $1,000 and $1,500. Is that coming through loud and clear? Poor quality services, $1,000 to $1,500 per local client, all day long. So in terms of customer feedback on YP, and by the way, in like 2012, I think it was the online division of YP had grown by 40%. Overall in YP, they're still losing money from what I understand, but still. Let's look at some of these feedback, some of this feedback on YP. I canceled this company 2 years ago. They're still charging me. I've been trying to cancel. They won't let me cancel. They refuse to give me a cancellation number over the phone. So this relates to some of you. Some of you are hesitant to give out contracts. This is a big company that locks people into contracts, and they do it because they offer them a discount with contracts. I don't know how many of you have been on that webinar whenever I talk about bare minimum locking your client into 3-month contracts, bare minimum 3 months, preferably 6 months to 1 year, but you got to offer them the discount based on it. Just up your rates, offer the discount. This is a company, not only do they do that, but they don't let people out of contracts. Bad marketing campaign, not getting the results, they won't let you out of a contract at all. More customer feedback. Salesman said he'd get me high priority listings for $91 per month. And then they had some problems, they had issues, and then they called back in and they got sold to $300 or $1,300 per month. So this is part of this is how the bigger companies work in online marketing, and all of them. This is where all of their focus is towards. They get a client that comes in for $91 per month. They call in and they have a problem, so they close them down on $1,300 per month. That doesn't probably make sense to a lot of you. You're probably wondering, well, how would you do that? They probably called in at $91 per month and said, well, you're wanting this, that, this, and that, but that's not available for $91 a month, because seriously, what is $91 per month, right? So $1,300 per month is probably something that was realistic on the marketing budget. It didn't work out for them. Salesman did a cold call approach. I didn't want to sign up for anything with a contract. I wanted to be able to cancel if I could, since I was not my direct business. I was going in the future, blah, blah, blah. And they're not able to cancel. Repaid efforts were made to resolve my issues. I never received any signed copy of advertising. Again, I searched YP on ripoff report, and they had 306 ripoff reports. This one is too long for me to even read through, but this is really interesting. It's a YP employee talking about how they handle their sales, what their sales attitude is, how they're running a call center out of Sterling, Colorado to run their sales, and pretty much that they're sales pit bulls, pretty much. And I was tricked into a 12-month contract, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea, right? And on some additional research that I did, and I'm not wanting to mention those companies' names, which is why I lobbed them into here, but the other 4 top online marketing companies that are the largest in the United States anyways, shared the exact same trend, 100%. Low quality services, horrible reputation online, very, very fast growth over the last 5 years. They have a great brand image when you do look at their brand. They push on sales to outrun attrition. Their sales strategy, volume, call center style, commissions based, and hard sales, right? So a lot of comments are coming back saying, hey, that's messed up. Hey, they shouldn't be doing that. Hey, have they ever actually done online marketing and ranked anyone before? But this big company attitude is really the same attitude of nearly big company, any big company that's out there. If you're going to look at almost any big company, they're always going to push twice as hard on sales as in regards to anything else. You say that one more time. Show me any big corporation that grows in the span of under 10 years from small to very large, and they do not push on sales 2-3 times as hard as anything else. Michael says, thus why this industry has a bad reputation. Well, you could probably offer the exact same product they offer if you manage the client's expectations. But really what it is, a lot of it has to do with how they're selling it, yes, but also a lot of it has to do with just direct statistics on what they're doing. If you wanted to calculate how many people they touch and the odds that they plan on closing their sales versus you, they'd probably be able to they're going to close a lot more because they're investing the money into it and they're calculating their ROI on it. Barry says, can't you push on sales and have a good reputation? Yeah, you can. Ricardo says, Paul, when is Endless Rise going to open that call center for us like these big boys? Oh, I don't know, maybe next month. Steven says, I'm selling reputation only, so would this be bad for me? No, I mean, like, based on whatever you sell, I mean, at the end of the day, though, and I like to take a little bit of a pull on this. Don't get me wrong, this presentation is not over. This is the warm-up for where we're going with the presentation. But even what we went through right there, would you replicate that if that meant that you're going to have $40 million in your pocket next year? I mean, really, would you? Barry says no, but I really don't believe you. I don't. That's a lot of money. And you know, even at that, these are not necessarily rip-off companies that are doing this. They do have an overhead. They did put together a lot of different software behind this. They have a lot of strategizing for it, right? It's a lot. $40 million is a lot. It's a really big deal. Yeah, and like Mark says, I don't think they start out planning to rip off customers. No, they build a product, they push it hard. They build it up, they push a tremendous sales team on it, and that's what they do. They set their annual goals and they do what it takes to meet them. They're pushers. Welcome to big corporate America. Of course they are. That's what they do. So these are very intelligent companies. This is what they're doing. But the main point in this is to allow you to be able to understand that you can get big in this industry and not have it be dependent necessarily even on your services or on your reputation, period. In fact, all the big companies go against that grain, right? Which is probably everything that you've been taught from a lot of different people. How dangerous is it to have a bad reputation? Yeah, it could be, right? And there's statistics that show that, but sales will counter a reputation any day of the week, any day of the week. Okay. Scott says, if a client asks why I should go with you, you should show them some of these stats. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was not, you know, running Endless Rise and I were in your shoes, I would definitely take my chunk of Reach Local's 500 million. I would. I only need 1 million of it. Why not? You know what I mean? If it's that far out, if there's that much out there and these companies are that successful, that's how much opportunity is out there for you. Okay, now let's talk about you. Enough about the big guys. Now, what bridge the gaps between you and them? I don't think any of you are sitting there saying, hey, I want to go do that. I want to go build a big call center and get bad reviews online. And by the way, they do have their own good reviews, even if they did publish them themselves. But what I do want you to understand is that I think there needs to be a middle ground with getting small, medium online marketing companies a bit further away from the small, medium business attitude and having some sort of, Lane says, nice job, sorry, but some sort of a mindset that's a little bit more towards big corporate if you want to grow. So yeah, we indeed help you accomplish by providing quality online marketing services for your local business clients at a very low cost. We offer quality services, we really do. There's a lot of services that we offer and those line items are so ridiculously extensive that if YP or any of those companies that I mentioned try to stack up their workload and their line items on what gets done from the services of ours compared to theirs, even if we only did half of what's on that proposal, you're still outrunning them. You're still outrunning them. So we provide high-level services. We really do. Now, if you want to take and compare our services to Bruce Clay, who has clients that are paying him over $1 million a year. Some of them pay him multiple millions of dollars a year, and he's running a boutique SEO firm, and his average employee cost is probably between $80,000 and $150,000 a year. Are we comparable to that? No. So do we have high quality of services? Absolutely. Do we have higher quality services than the largest online marketing firms in North America? Yes. Can I get some other shouts out to a yes? Absolutely. Now, if you want to go run up against some of the biggest boutique firms, which are charging millions of dollars, no, don't go comparing us to them. Why would you? But we do offer very high quality services. In the real world, it is true that you can't please everybody. Loss of customers and customer attrition is inevitable. As mentioned earlier, customer churn rate happens. It's a reality, and every winner does focus on another thing that's real, but that's their growth. And growing is in their customers and in their sales. And a lot of the things that I realize that, you know, what the big companies are doing is they're calculating their attrition rate. And you need to understand that when you look at a big company, take personality out of it, just take it out, and just look at numbers, because they set their product and then they look at numbers. And I'm serious. It all comes down to numbers whenever you get that big. So whenever you look at numbers and they're calculating their churn rate, right? How many of you have ever, for the year, not only outlined your finances and your financial goals for the year, but how many of you calculate in your churn rate? Anybody? Anyone? Lane says yes. Lane, what's your churn rate that's calculated? Anyone else? Can anyone give a shout out? Give me a percentage. What's your churn rate? Churn rate. Lane says 90%. He means retention rate. 10% churn, yeah. Lauren says 25% churn rate. That's pretty legitimate. Michelle says 25% churn rate is actually really high. Okay. I have yet to have anyone put in a churn rate of less than 5%, and most people are coming in above 10%. And I'm going to talk about that a lot. So hopefully your numbers are coming through there. All right. Well, pay attention to this. This is going to get interesting. Okay. How do you compute churn rate? How to compute churn rate is really easy. It's oh geez, I'm going to skip ahead on this because this is my better churn rate one. You calculate churn rate by taking the number of customers who leave and dividing by the total number of customers at the end of the period. So it's pretty straightforward. So you would start with how many customers you started with, plus how many customers you gained, minus how many customers you lost, divided by the customers that you have at the end of the period, and then you have your percentage on your churn rate. Okay, so let's go back up. So we've got churn rate, and churn rate is something that all of you need to pay attention to. Okay, if you don't know churn rate and you want to look into it more, you can Google it all day long, and you should. Churn rate is something that you need to understand. I'm not going to go over retention rates and different types of retention calculations. I was going to, and I ran out of time on this, but it's probably best that I'm not anyways. But a churn rate is what you have to understand. And for any of you who have not set your financial goals for the year, I don't care if you have a single client or not, sit down today and set your financial goals for the year. You have to. Every single day that you wake up, that's what you're working towards for the year. Really, that's why you wake up and you get out of bed and you own your company and you say, why? What am I going to do today? And what does it contribute towards? That's right. It's a dollar value at the end of the year. And the decisions you make on a daily basis should be tweaked and changed a little bit based on what you need to do to hit that number at the end of the year. But factored into that number needs to be your acknowledgement on a particular churn rate. Okay? You have to factor that in. And so many people do not do that. And I know it because I see people and I know people, and some of you have 20 clients, and I see how you react whenever you're about ready to lose one client. And it's absolutely devastating to you. But those are the people that I assume you haven't calculated your churn rate. Because when you calculate your churn rate and you do your financial broadcasting for the year and you lose a client, it doesn't become emotional. You go back to your numbers. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care about your client, but you already lost them. Now, what do you need to do whenever you react to it? You need to understand what your churn rate was so that you know how to react to that situation. Now, if you analyzed it and you understand that your churn rate is going to be about 10% and you go back into it and you see that your churn rate is sitting at 20%, should you freak out? Probably. Or you need to realign what your churn rate is and do some more research into it. Okay. Drop off is normal in business, but if you haven't done your financial forecasting and if you haven't already accepted the churn rate that's normal in your industry, then when you lose a client, you're going to freak out. Okay. And I say when you lose a client, and that's just because everyone was going to lose a client. I've never known anyone that doesn't lose a client at some point in time. Okay, so let's check this out. Now, let's say that you start out with 10 clients in the first month. Let's just say that you start out with 10 clients. And if you did have a 10% churn rate, if you did, that's what everyone was speaking up on. A lot of people said more than a 10% churn rate. And that means you're going to lose one client a month. One client a month. Now, that means at the end of 10 months, you're going to be sitting with one client. And I didn't put that loser word in there. Sorry about that. Should have been poor performance, maybe. So no bad jabs there. It wasn't me. So you're sitting with one client a month on 10% churn rate. What's missing from this diagram? Anyone? What's missing? There's something missing. Sales, yes, sales, gains. There's nothing else that is coming in. How many of you have had clients at a certain point in time, got comfortable, were happy with where you were at with your revenues and profit margins, relaxed, and stopped bringing in sales? Has that ever happened to any of you? Ever? Yeah, some familiar faces speaking up right now. Okay, you know the difference between a small company and a big company? They never stop closing, ever, never. Every single day in a big company is just like you are in your startup when you're worried if you're going to be able to pay your bills, if you're going to be able to get your business up off the ground. That's every day in these big companies that are able to reach 40 to 100 million every single day. But they take that pressure and they hire another person and they dump all that pressure on him. So this is what it looks like whenever you have 10 clients and you have your churn rate. If you accepted it and you sit on them and you don't push on sales and you say, I'm going to have a great life now, everything's cool. And then what happens? The churn rate that you didn't calculate in the very beginning creeps up on you, and then you start freaking out because you're losing clients. Does that sound familiar to anyone that said that they relaxed on their sales? Did that happen to you? Of course it did. It's churn rate. If you're not calculating it, you would, if you calculate churn rate on your annual, you will never sit complacent. Ever. Ever. Okay. Situation number 2. Now let's say that you hired project managers or client retention managers to try to save your retention issue if you thought you had one at 10%, and you wanted to cut down your retention effort to 5%. So this is what happens whenever you get comfortable on sales and you stop pushing on sales. If you are going to start pushing when you got comfortable in sales, maybe you lose one client, and what do you start pushing on? To fix your churn rate, right? Because you're not onboarding a lot of sales. That takes effort, it takes energy, you need to ramp it up. You've got your client base, maybe you got comfortable and now you're sitting on your clients and you say, okay, I lost a client. Oh my God, I need to go and I need to fix all these clients. I need to look into them and I'm scared I'm gonna lose them to the client because I'm not pushing sales. So let's say that you did do that. And let's say that that's what you did and you weren't bringing in inbound sales, which I understand there'd be a different distribution in real life world. But let's say that you decreased your churn rate by half and now you're sitting at 5%. And that means that if you started with 10 clients at the end of 10 months, you're sitting with 5 clients. Is that something that any of you want? No, of course not. So let's look at a different example. Let's take it back up to a 10% churn rate. And what if you hired a salesman instead of diving into, because this is what the bigger companies do. Let's just say that you were sitting at a 10% churn rate, and instead of diving in to fix your churn rate at take it down to 5%, you hired a salesman instead and started converting 10 additional clients each month. What happens at the end of that 5 months? Just 5 months. That's not 10 months, that's 5 months. Versus the first diagram at 10% attrition rate, at the end of 10 months, you're sitting with 1 client. At 5 months, you're sitting at 40 on this one. That's a big deal, right? Can anyone do the calculation based on a 10% churn rate and tell me what it would be at 10 months? What's that one? That's massive. 10 months is, I don't know, like 70 or something like that. That's the difference in a graph. Let me show you that one more time. It's 10% attrition with 5 clients at the end of 10 months without your inbound sales that are there at a 10% churn rate. And there's your 5-month mark with 40 clients at 10 inbound because you hired a salesman and didn't relax. Jimina says, at the end of 10 months, you're sitting at 90 clients. I think that math's wrong because we're looking at a monthly 10% down. I think it's more like 70, but yeah. Greg says good salespeople are expensive, but I would disagree because I've seen a lot of companies hire people on commission-based only, pay nothing for them, and they're making a lot of money. They really are. They're doing it. And it's just not in online marketing. Look at all the other industries that they're making it work for them in. Okay. Now, let's look at another graph. What if you hired 2 salesmen and you were converting 20 clients a month at a 10% attrition rate, a 10% churn rate? Now you said this is going to be working. And who cares how many, if you did have to hire the salesman and they were not commission-based, if you did make it work, if you were aggressive. And keep in mind, the big companies that are making this work, the companies that are able to push 500 million a year, the companies like, I think it's, what was it, Reach Local, where their average sales guy has got to be pushing about $500,000 a year in revenue. If they can do it, why can't you? I mean, really, if they can do it, why can't you? You can do it. You can absolutely do it. You need to figure it out, but it's not rocket science. It's not. All these other companies can do it with a really bad product, with a bad reputation, and they hire in the same people. Why don't you go hire one of their sales guys? They're sitting over there with 900 of them. Why don't you go get one of those guys? You know what I mean? So for all of you out there who says, I can't make this work, I haven't been able to make it work. Well, they're sitting over there on 1,000 salesmen. There's got to be probably projected on that with all these other big companies that are out there. There's got to be about 5,000 of those guys sitting in the United States. And you know what? I'll bet whatever commissions you'd give to them would be a lot higher than they're making right now. In fact, I know that they are. Okay. So at the end of 5 months on onboarding 20 clients a month with a 10% churn rate, you're looking at 74 clients. 74 clients. So you have to wonder, if you're ever in a situation where you're facing losing a client, does your anxiety come because you're losing a client, or does your anxiety come because you don't have the sales to replace it? It's a good question, isn't it? Okay, calculating churn rate, we went over. This is a churn rate brainstorm. Let's say you bring in 10 clients a month and typo, lose 1 client a month. That's a 10% churn rate, right? What is your churn rate over 6 months? It's 11%. So how long until you plateau in sales? Sorry, I'm just been hurrying on this one. With this given churn rate versus onboarding rate, how long until you plateau? Well, if you're consistently onboarding 10 new clients every single month, and if your churn rate is at 10, 11% per month, then you're losing 1 client a month per each 10 block that you brought on, right? Which means on the 10th month mark, which is exactly what this diagram, on the 10-month mark, you would have lost 10 clients and you would have brought on 10 clients. Is everyone following me on that? If for every, on a 10% churn rate, if you bring on 10 clients a month and saying you lose 1 client a month, every single month, you would lose 1 out of those 10 block that comes on, which means that 10 months into this, if you're still onboarding 10 clients a month, on that 10th month, you would lose 10 clients. So you brought on 10 and you would lose 10 in the 10th month. The question is, what would you do on month 11 when you would have lost 11 clients and only brought on 10? So at that at that sales, with the sales rate remaining consistent and a churn rate remaining consistent, at some point in time, they plateau. How many of you have ever plateaued in your sales and not understood why? How many of you have ever reached a certain point and said, man, I seem to always level out at this amount of revenue. It just always comes back to it. I don't know why, man. I get up to here, I go back down to there. I get up to here, I go back down to there. It's like I'm cursed at that amount of revenue. I don't know why. I'm just right there. Well, sales meets churn rate. It's that simple. Sales meets churn rate. So what small, medium businesses are doing a lot in online marketing that I see over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm serious, like 98% of the time, when their sales are going good, they do not scale their sales team. They keep it consistent. And when that churn rate catches up and plateaus with sales, I see companies taking the wrong reaction to it, in my opinion, which is they dive into, well, actually I have other slides that'll get into that into. The question is, what would you do in month 11 whenever for the first time you actually start to lose momentum on your revenue? What would you do? Ken says add a rep. 98% of the time I see people run into this situation, they do not add a rep. Yeah, everyone's saying the common sense thing is to add a salesperson, add a sales rep, add a sales rep. I'm telling you, on small, medium online marketing businesses, 98% of the time, people do not do it. They don't do it. Ryan says that doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. If something's going right, I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if it's because when sales gets there, people relax, or when sales gets there, people hire more project managers or more software or a new car, or what it is. But what they don't do is keep their financial equation the exact same and invest back into sales to keep that momentum going. And then they're never calculated their churn rate. It catches up to them, and they freak out. Then they start screaming at us, thinking that we're offering a bad product, which just isn't true. Churn rate. Okay. So, startup. Small business failure statistics. I want to talk to everyone a little bit about churn rate in the industry and why we talk about churn rate, right? How many, according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months, a whopping 80% crash and burn. How many businesses make it through their 5-year mark? Does anyone know that? Can someone give me a statistic? I didn't pull it, but I needed that one. It's on my slide. Someone help me out here. What's the statistics on that? I'm getting 20%, 5, 10. Anyone got a real statistic from a real site that they can reference for me? If you could put a link in or something from a site, that'd be great. I can reference it. I'll wait for someone to dig that up. And thank you. Justin's doing a PhD in this area. You go get that then. Awesome. All right. And what are the major reasons for small business failures? I can open this up and go through it. I don't think that I'm going to. Startup business failure rate by industry. Maybe you can look at these links if you want to and dive into it. One of the things that you have to understand is the economic landscape of business. You are a marketing company, which means that people pay you when they're making money. Okay? But if 80% of them fail and people pay you when they're making money, does that mean that you're going to struggle with your churn rate? You see how that connects in? You're a marketing company. Okay, I got Forbes sites, 5 reasons 8 out of 10 people fail. Yeah, but I'm looking for the stat on how many companies come out after 5 years that are still in business or profitable. Anna says year 5, 55%. I'm going to pick that stat up. Someone tell me otherwise. She gave me a link to it. That sounds good to me. So if about half of them aren't making it through their 5-year mark, and you're servicing the local business community, unless you're picking up a business that's in business for more than 5 years, and I'd have to look at the statistics on businesses that make it past the 10-year mark, wouldn't you say that your churn rate would be based on the success rate of the general businesses that are out there and how the economy is doing? Wouldn't that make sense? And even if you're doing a good job marketing, and Michael says 34% after 10 years, and even if you're doing a good job marketing, if the majority of companies don't make it and 50% make it past the 5-year point, and only 30% of them that started make it past the 10-year point, what does that mean to your churn rate as a marketing company? And I think a lot of people really don't think about this. I think that most people just think about your churn rate is based on the quality of your services. But that's not true. How many of you have done good marketing services for a client and lost them? How many of you have produced what you should have produced for what you were paid for a client and you still lose them? Well, look at the business statistics that are out there on the failure rate of businesses. You are a marketing company. You are dependent on their success. Unless they're just busy and they're doing good, they'll keep paying for you regardless of really the performance sometimes. But even if you're performing for them, your churn rate is still going to be based on local businesses and their success rates. So you have to understand that. That's something that you have to beat in your head. You have to understand your churn rate. You need to understand the economy a little bit. You need to understand success rates of businesses. And you need to understand that even though you're a marketing company, you're going to lose clients because clients typically don't make it out of the business gates anyways. Unless you're working with a pre-existing business that's been in business for more than 10 years and they're on a high flying grade, which would be great. But the typical local marketing company, they're not that. All right, so you got to keep that in mind, okay? You're in the business of providing online marketing services to make clients happy and to make more money and to make them more money. And if you're able to hook up with a good small marketing or good local service or product provider, and they're doing great in their business, I'm sure you're going to be able to complement them very well. Regardless of your marketing efforts, if you're with a company that's on a downward trend, there's a lot of things that apply to a company going under that has nothing to do with their marketing at all. So top 10 reasons why small companies remain small. I'm going to go through the top 10 as quickly as I can to wrap this up. And this is a really important top 10. So hopefully you keep in mind what we talked about the mindset of the big companies and how they're doing what they're doing. And hopefully you're keeping in mind right now also about churn rate and understanding churn rate in the industry. And if you want to be conservative on churn rate, stick to 10%. And 10% churn rate, by the way, is a pretty high churn rate, okay? That's not an easy pill to swallow if you've got 10 clients and you're losing a client a month. You got to understand that, but that's real, and it really is real. Top 10 reasons why small online marketing companies stay small. And I'm going to start from the bottom and work up to the number one reason. Reason number 10, lack of business planning. Become a large company, you have to plan your finances annually and strategic decisions to accomplish your financial goals. Without a basic financial goal for the year, small companies are left without the most basic of roadmap. Basic organization, and that means calculating in your churn rate, which is why I said the very first thing that you do today, if you haven't done it, even if you don't have a client, you set your financial goal. You know what you do when you wake up tomorrow? You better be thinking about your financial goal. And every single day that goes by, take that financial goal for the month, divide it up to between every single day, and know how much money you're supposed to make that day. And you know what you do before you quit working? You work another hour until you make that much money. Otherwise, you know that you're giving up. Work. Put the time in. Reason number 9, lack of understanding of the online marketing industry and economical changes in general. Online marketing is a dynamic industry, and it is very unique in that the rules of the game are always changing and completely out of your control. Marketing budgets get cut based on companies' performance, regardless of how well the marketing campaign is performing. Sometimes marketing companies have to understand their position in the business realm and learn to have a tolerance for attrition. This is really, really important. You're in a dynamic industry. Things change. You don't control Google or Bing or Yahoo or what's going on, which is one more reason why you need to be able to understand what your churn rate is going to be. And I keep saying churn rate, and it's probably getting really annoying to a lot of you. But at the end of the day, your success is sales versus churn rate. You're outsourcing. You are sales versus churn rate. Is it that simple to everyone? Of course, you want to provide high quality of services. Of course, you want all your clients to get rich. But you know what's going to make you the revenue at the end of the year? It's very simple. Sales versus churn rate. Your profit margin is not difficult to calculate. You outsource your sales versus churn rate. So understanding that you are in a dynamic industry and things are out of your control. And listen, the work that was done 2-3 years ago to get someone ranking, that most all companies, all online market companies did, even we did back in the day, because you had to perform those kind of practices to compete, will hurt your client now. When you're in the type of industry where you can actually have something that you needed to do back then that you do right now, and it turns into something that was good for the client and made them a lot of money, into something that hurts the client, when you're in that kind of an industry, you're playing a little bit of Russian roulette, absolutely. So should you tack on a little bit to what you think your churn rate's going to be to give some padding to understanding that maybe, just maybe, things will change in the search engines because you don't control the environment whatsoever, and things happen. Absolutely. You need to be able to factor that in. And at the end of the day, whenever you factor in that churn rate, if you say it's 10%, if you even want to go as extreme as 15, and I think you're okay at 10, you're really going to understand how hard you need to push in sales to make this happen. It's not undoable by any means. And I personally don't think online marketing sales is too terribly difficult. And I think it's really interesting. And I think if a company can reach 500 million doing it, you can. Reason number 8, lack of project management background. What you sell does require project management. Oftentimes, small to medium-sized marketing firms either over project manage or under project manage. Very rarely do I see a really good middle ground in terms of that you actually evaluate how much time is going into project management and calculate what your acceptable support hours are that you're putting into the project management for a client. How many of you have had 2 clients before that you could take and pull out and say, okay, I can compare this one and that one? And you've got one client paying you a lot of money and another client paying you nothing. And the client paying you nothing is taking up 10 times as much time as the client paying you a lot of money. Has that ever happened to anyone? Ever? Ever? Yep. Do you think that happens to Reach Local? You think that happens to Yellow Pages? No, not at all. So, one of the things that you really got to understand is that your time is valuable. And unless you have a lot of employees, you have to be very careful with your time. You have to be able to structure your project management. If you're over project managing, if you're putting too much time into it, if you're really getting into the details, if you're not just looking to see if things are done and you're actually trying to strategize and formulate everything and really dive into it, okay, well, I hope you got a sales team that is running and performing for you then, because if you're doing both, then your sales isn't going anywhere. If you're under project managing and you're not putting the amount of time into it, then your churn rate's going to be pretty high, right? And it's either or. I see it a lot. Reason number 7, lack of company structuring and organization in general. Having to organize yourself is difficult enough, yet alone if you had 10 employees. The level of internal organization in small, medium online marketing companies is typically very, very poor. Customer support systems are not streamlined and working, and you typically don't have training for your reps if you do have any. But without structure and streamlining of basic systems and processes, you won't break out of that small company bubble. Even if you're just a sales team, you still have to be organized and streamlined. You really have to. And that's not necessarily easy. So do keep that in mind. You do have to be organized. No matter what, a basic level of business organization has to exist. I have seen big companies, and I'm talking multi-billion-dollar companies, that do not have proper training for their sales reps. It's astonishing. And on the project management layer, they don't have it there. Multi-billion-dollar companies, let alone small companies. At least the multi-billion-dollar companies made all their money somewhere else, and they can afford to be unorganized in their marketing division. But you can't. If you want to get through it, you're going to have to be very organized, especially if you're small. You have to be organized. What am I talking about? I'm talking about proper billing systems. You can get them very cheap. You can get them for $10 a month. I don't care what CRM system you're using, just make it work. You know, I don't care what project management system or ticketing system you're using with a client. Who cares? They pretty much all of them do the same thing. Just make it work. Just be organized with it. Just be consistent in your training and your onboarding. Reason number 6, poor judgment on business diversification or target marketing, or target, that's not target marketing, that is target market. You can probably tell I was really rushing to get this thing done. Target market diversification. Oftentimes you run across other streams of revenue or business opportunities, but that's never happened to any of you, right? Let's say you've got an online marketing firm. Maybe you just do online marketing and you do web design. But none of you have ever had any other business opportunities that came along and distracted you and didn't turn out for you and took your attention away from your primary business. That's never happened, right? Never. Or if you said your target market was right there in your backyard and you were supposed to be focusing on it, but yet some other target market popped up, caught your eye, and you completely went off into the left field. That ever happened to any of you? You ever get a client that approaches you and offers you a rev share situation and says, why don't you market for me for free and I'll give you 20% of my company? Ever wasted any of your time doing that before? Yeah. Focus. Focus. This is only reason number 6, but really at the end of the day, focus. It's just focus. Choose what you're going to do, understand your business plan, understand your financial goals, understand what you're going to do to meet those goals. And it doesn't mean starting another business. It doesn't mean branching out. Understand your vision, understand what you're doing, and do not deviate from it. Give it a chance. Work your ass off on it. And if it doesn't work, fine, go do something else. But don't start diversifying because it's not working for you. You better work really, really hard before you start diversifying. It's going to really take you off track. I talk to way too many people that are way too excited about other things they got going on, but at the end of the day, they're not making a lot of money. And by a lot of money, I mean more than $250,000 in profit per year, period. And that's probably after investing $100,000 of it back into their own company. If you're not there, don't run around and look for all these other opportunities. Reason number 5, this is a big one. And hopefully this hits home with a lot of you, because all of you that are out there, you know, I brought up the question, how many of you want to be a boutique firm with $80,000 to $150,000 a month employees, and you want to be handling multi-million-dollar clients every single month? And do you want that? Do you want to have to build that? That's a different ballgame. That's a different world. That's a different arena. You're outsourcing. And there's a damn good reason to be outsourcing. And it's highly, highly profitable. And it's not just small companies that outsource. Very, very big companies outsource. Some of the biggest companies outsource everything. And I'm not just talking about outsourcing to the States. I'm talking about outsourcing to China, India, Philippines. Absolutely. Reason number 5, too much technical training and not enough sales training. Online marketing company owners typically have spent hundreds of hours, if not thousands, studying online marketing, how to do it, what not to do, what you should do, what new tools are out there, what's the latest news. But at the end of the day, you're outsourcing your work. I think absolutely you need to be educated on what you're doing. But what does this lead to? This leads to company owners becoming obsessed with the fine details of the marketing campaigns, project management, strategies, methodologies, and it turns into something like this. You have a person on Odesk. You've got another person on Freelancer. You're running 3 other SEO tools or platforms. You attend 4 webinar coaching programs probably per week. You go to the conferences. You're staying up to date and on top of the entire industry. But at the end of the year, you look back on your revenue and you wonder, why didn't my company grow? Why am I not so big? I'm so intelligent. I know so much. I'm so technical. I'm so up to date on everything. I'm such a good consultant. Why am I not a big company by now? What's wrong? And it's very, very simple. Sales is not the focus. It's really that simple. It's so easy to get distracted with all of the commotion going on in our industry. The truth of the matter is, the people that work with us that are the biggest companies, they don't go to any webinars, except for mine. But a lot of them don't even attend ours. And until recently, if you've noticed over the last 8 months, our webinars have probably doubled or tripled in quality as it's become one of our, primary focal points. But before that, the majority of our big partners, they don't attend coaching sessions. They don't take classes. They don't go to seminars. They don't buy anything. You know what they do? They sell. And they do project management. They do provide good services. And some of them have won SEO awards before. Reason number 4, fear of failure, fear of reputation, fear of not knowing, fear of not being able to handle it. So often when I speak with online marketing companies, the amount of hesitation to hand over campaigns is tremendous. The hand-holding on top of project management can be overwhelming because of the fear of failure. This fear partially comes from the lack of knowledge, but also as a result of what I said in number 5, which is all the technical training and the obsession on what's going on in methodologies and everything else. The fear is oftentimes so great of losing a client or screwing someone over that it literally stops companies, small companies, from selling at all. I've seen this happen over and over and over again. I have, and I can't give too much details on this because I don't want to offend any companies out there, but look on both hands, I can count 10 companies that in the past have left us, tried to set up an in-house team, tried several different outsourcing alternatives, came back later, and when they came back, they were a smaller company than when they started working with us. But when they started working with us and they stopped nitpicking everything and they just pretty much sold what we do and sold it well, they started to become a big company. And I have at least 10 perfect case studies on that. Hey, you're not going to look like Reach Local is online. But if you did and you had the 500 million, it's not a bad trade-off, is it? So if you have a fear of failure, if you're worried that you don't know what you're doing, if you have a fear of not being able to handle it or handle the project management, if you're a fear of the growth, if you're afraid that you're going to mess up and your client's going to get mad at you and they're going to put you on rip-off report, and if you do buy into that, if you have one bad review online that it could ruin your business, well, it didn't ruin Reach Local, did it? They only have $500 million this year. So there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of. They're not fulfilling their product. They're not doing any of that. If you have any fear of growing, if you have any fear of failure because you don't know what you're doing, go look at those big companies. That presentation in the beginning about those big companies was right about this slide right here, getting rid of your fear. That's the biggest companies. They're not scared, and it's not because they got the money to back it. It's because that they understand the power of sales. And the thing that you need to take away from this is the power of sales. The most important way to secure your company and to give you stability is to understand how to sell and make it happen. Reason number 3, an inability to scale project management and understand what is needed. Now, I don't say this necessarily because of project management, because whenever I talk about, what keeps you as a smaller company, I'm comparing you to what the bigger companies are doing and the differences. The bigger companies are not project managing. They're not. They really aren't, guys. They're not project managing. So I'm not saying that your inability to scale project management is what's stopping your sales. I'm saying that your inability to scale project management is stopping your sales because you stopped selling to project manage. Did I make that very clear? Not project managing will not keep you small. That's a fact. Not selling will keep you small. An inability to scale project management will not keep you small. But when your inability to scale project management results in you not selling, then you will always be a small company. You could stop project managing tomorrow and hire a sales force and turn into a $20 million company, get bought out and go public, because that's the trend. And that's real. You really got to get your head into the mindset and out of the small company mindset of the fear that's sitting behind you. You can attack it. There's nothing to be scared of. The problem with scaling project management is a lot of you, your salesperson is the same person that is project managing. It's the same person. So what happens when shit happens with project management? You stop selling. You stop selling. That's the problem. So this happens over and over and over again. So you probably read through this, but I'm going to read it. This is what happens when companies onboard more projects than they can project manage. They stop selling. They turn all efforts towards project management. They over project manage without streamlined processes or systems. They do not have inbound sales coming in, or the sales are lower. Clients start to drop off because you didn't calculate your churn rate, and it's normal anyways, but you didn't factor that in, so now you're freaking out. And then you panic because you're losing clients and you don't have any sales coming in. And then what do? Then you turbocharge your client retention efforts with a goal of zero attrition, and your sales is still not there. Does that ring a bell to anyone? Has that ever happened to you? You know how I know? Because I've talked to thousands of marketing companies over the last years, and this is the same with 98% of all small, medium-sized companies, and it keeps them small. You know what fixes the mindset whenever things get overwhelming in project management? You know what the bigger companies do? They sell more and they project manage less. And then you know what they do if they need to stack up on project managers? They'll hire 2 more salesmen, and then they'll increase the price of their product, and then they'll hire more project managers. They do not react by addressing project management directly. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying that is what they're doing. Okay, reason number 2, fear of overhead and the dream of living the beach style remote life. No one really wants that, right? I mean, no one wants to go and live on the beach. That's not fun. Who wants to do that? Hey, you've never been in a webinar before and they told you to get into internet marketing because you could go live on the beach, right? That's never happened. No one ever said that to you. I hope not. Not unless you want to stay a small business, you won't do that. Listen, in my opinion, if you want to be successful, get an office, get a physical office. I'm very serious about that. If you want to be really serious about growing your company, do not have a fear of overhead. Do not have a fear of getting a physical office. If you don't want the overhead, if you never want a physical office, if you never want to set up a legitimate business, if you want to always work remote and travel around and live on the different beaches, then that's fine, but you're going to stay a small company. I promise you, you will. And if you're going to webinars and people are telling you differently, that you're going to be able to live on the beach and do whatever you want, fine. Then go charge people to attend your webinars and go live on the beaches and you'll be just fine. But you're not selling attendance to webinars, are you? They are. You are an online marketing company. If you want to grow your company, what do you need? Sales. Guess what? A fantastic service will not make you a big company. You need sales. And you know what you need to run sales efficiently? An office, eventually. You can start out with remote sales teams. That's fine. You can start out with yourself. But if you ever want to start to scale something, sales. You know what I would do if I were you? I'd go get an office. I don't care. I'd hire high school kids, college kids. I don't care. I would train them. They'd be the biggest sales machines you've ever seen. I'd have always be closing signs all over that office. I would run one hell of a sales team out of the United States. Anything can happen. So talking points, physical office, yeah, normal overhead of a business. If you want to start to get bigger, accept it. Guess what? At some point in time, you're going to need to buy a desk and an office and a PC and business grade internet. And you're going to have to pay for the typical benefits that employees are going to get at some point in time if you want to grow to be big enough. But if it's not in your head, if your financial goals are not there, then you're not going to ever get there. If you want to make a lot of money, you're going to get typical business overhead at some point in time. Okay. Ability to scale staff. Got to hire people. If you can't manage staff, you can't lead your staff, you're not going to be able to grow the way that you need to grow. Donna says, working out of the house is a company killer. Mom wants you, husband wants you, kids want you. Yeah. Look, I want to debunk a myth. Becoming a big marketing company by working from home isn't going to happen. All right. It's not going to happen. I've never seen it happen. Not going to happen. So get your head out of that. For those of you that's sitting at home because you had a lot of other people tell you that you're going to be able to sit at home and sit on the beach and you're going to build a really big company, it's not true. It's not. It's as true as saying that you can go down to the store, down to the quick shop and buy a lottery ticket and get rich. That is true. It's true. Is it probable? No. So, yeah, and for those of you that know my background, you know that I started off in Inlands Rise sitting on the beach, working remote in Puerto Rico. But you know what I didn't tell myself was that at the opportunity to grow a big company, that I wouldn't turn it down and continue sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico. What did I do? I went and got 300 employees and made it happen. I haven't been to the beach in 5 years, guys. You want to make it happen, you're going to have to put your work in. Reason number one, which panic button would you hit? When revenue is down, do you hit the retention efforts button or do you hit the sales button? And again, this might sound a little bit cold because the client's well-being is not taken into consideration here. But at the end of the day, this is the biggest question that separates you from the big guys that we just went over. And I'd like to have an answer from you on this. After this presentation, looking at these numbers, when your revenue is down, you're going to hit the retention efforts button or you're going to hit that sales button, because most of you don't have the bandwidth to hit both. Does that make sense? Don't forget what you're saying now, because everyone's saying sales. But you know what happens when I talk to you in the future? You're hitting that retention button. You know what you're doing? You're bugging your campaign manager about what happened to their Yelp listing, and you're worried about losing a client because you don't have 5 other ones to back it up, and you're spending 2 hours trying to figure out what's wrong with one little problem on a campaign. Don't forget that. It's the sales button. What I want to see more than anything is I want to see more of our resellers starting to become bigger companies, stopping babysitting the campaign so much, stopping looking into the methodology so much. Understand it, but sell it. I want to see you guys get big. And I don't know where your education comes from or what you studied before, but it's very simple on what it takes to get big. Calculate your churn rate, hit your sales, and hit your sales really hard. I did all the work within Endless Rise with, you know, Leanne and the rest of the staff over here to make it to where you don't have to do all of that. That you don't have to try to figure out all of the in-depth details to the methodologies and the project management. And I promise you, the services you're getting from us are 5 times better than those companies making $20 to $500 million a year. So stop sweating the small stuff. Stop worrying about it. If a $500 million company can get there with horrible services and a bad reputation, then what's holding you back? Don't worry about it. Just go sell the crap out of it and make yourself a good company, right? Okay, reason number one for this, hit the sales button. Well, it looks like I just repeated the whole slide. Letgo and Fox. Well, it looks like I ran out of time on that slide at the bottom of it. Okay, so, you know, at the end of the day, I would encourage everyone to sell. Really, organize your sales around this and sell. And you need to also understand that what your churn rate is going to be. And if you run into an issue with a client, that churn rate is okay, that you are in a dynamic industry. And I would like to have a pledge from everyone on the line that's going to say, I am not babysitting my clients anymore. I am not going to freak out if I might lose a client over bumps in the road. And I'm going to close and sell more clients. If you ever want to get out of being a small online marketing company, you need to understand that you do not control the rules of engagement. I have in the past with other companies spent time with them babysitting their clients and trying to get rankings back or figure out something in a damn industry that is completely unknown. It's a secret recipe locked in the vault of Google. And I've worked 6 months to a year on some campaigns just because I wanted to figure out what was wrong. And to this day, going through 5 other providers and much, much more money, they haven't moved at all. You can't control it. You got to understand the product you're serving, servicing, selling to your clients. You have to understand that your product is better than $500 million companies, and that needs to be good enough. Good enough. Stop stressing about it. Just go sell. Set your churn rate. And if you exceed your churn rate, then worry about it. But if you do not exceed your churn rate, which should be between 10 and 15% for very safe padding on it, then you need to understand that your problem's not the services you're offering. Your problem is your sales. When your sales are there and your churn rate's catching up to you because it's beyond what you set, then that's when you need to be a pro member and you need to give me a phone call and you need to talk to me about it, and we'll figure that out then. Otherwise, let's play the sales ball game and at least not replicate what those big companies are doing. You don't have to grow to $4,500 million a year. but let's at least get all of you to where you're not staying so small. This time next year, when we have this same webinar on a recap, and I ask all of you who hopefully will be in attendance on the same webinar, and I ask you how many clients you have per month, you better not be saying 1 to 5, and I hope that I have 20, because I'm scared to sell, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to project manage, because I'm worried about what's going to happen to me, even though the guy sitting next to you making $500 million a year is ripping everybody off and you're hesitant, right? All right, everyone. Don't forget March promos. We have, let me bring this up here. Oh, and everyone will probably appreciate this. You know the pop-up slider in the very beginning? We installed the close button on all of them, so you don't have to flip through all of them to close it. That's probably a pretty big announcement for a lot of you. Scott's saying, all right, awesome. I'm actually tired of being on screen recording with people too much, and I have to wait for you to click through the whole thing myself. So you can close that down, and remember that we have the March promo going on. There's 25% down on design, and you should have gotten an email about that March promo. And then just to touch base and make sure that everyone on the line knows who your sales consultant is and your marketing consultant, I'm going to be redoing the UI, the layout on the services to make this more apparent to you. But if you do not know who your marketing consultant is, if you do not know who your design consultant is, you should. You need to know that. As I had said in the previous webinar, the consultants, they're not typical call center agents. They go and undergo a lot of training. They know what they're doing. Every single one of these guys has probably talked to hundreds of marketing CEOs before and advised them on what marketing services they need to go with. They have a lot of information for you to be able to be avail of. So if you're in the system and you're wondering about what services are best for your client, if you're overwhelmed with the system and you don't know what to do, then fine. Go get the sales collateral, talk to your marketing consultant, and go sell it and make it happen. That's all you need to do. So we've got the sales consultants are actually on the line. I don't know if they can see the comments or not. But if anyone wants to give a shout out to their sales consultant, feel free to do so. AMs, account managers, are also on the line. So if any of you are interfacing with your AMs or sales consultants, please give a shout out to them, because it's not often enough that they get the appreciation that they do deserve. It's one of the things that you never see since we're an outsourced provider. You never see the people working the overtime or putting in all the additional effort that they do to make sure that you get what you need to make sure that you are providing a better level of service than that $500 million company. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So hopefully you learned a lot off of this webinar, and I'm not even sure what the next webinar is going to be about, but I'll be definitely sending out an email to you letting you know what that webinar is going to be about, and I'm sure that I'll come up with something. We do have the sales battle is on Wednesday, March 26th. So this upcoming Wednesday, we have the sales battle. And the format has been finalized. It's going to be a really good sales battle. If you're not familiar with the Ultimate Sales Battle training, it's role play sales battle training. So if you want to know a little bit more about the best way to do a hard close on a sale, complementary to this webinar, I'm going to be bringing on someone that's going to be able to help out with show you a little bit on how to do a hard sale. So hard sales are a bit necessary depending on how much you want to sell. Soft sales don't work as well as hard sales, and I don't think that you're ever going to read any statistic in the entire world that will ever tell you that soft sales work better than hard sales. I'm sorry, but it's not true, everyone. Hard sales is always better in terms of your profit off of it. So you need to learn that whether or not you like it or not. If you want to make money, you need to learn the hard sales, or at least a blend of it between soft and hard sales. So I'm going to be bringing someone on the sales battle on the 26th that is into more leaning towards the side of hard sales. So hopefully your ears are not too sensitive to strong language, because he's a bit of a bulldog, but I think it's going to be really good for everyone to see how he sells, because he's probably one of the most successful salesmen I know in the entire community because he's been everything from an employee to a big marketing company to now the CEO of his own large marketing firm that's nationally known. So should be strong. Again, that's the Ultimate Sales Battle coming up on March 26th, and that's for pro members. So if you're not a pro member and if you're not a pro member and you do want to attend it, then unfortunately you have to be a pro member, which is not a bad thing. So, all right, everyone, thank you for attending the webinar. Remember, always be closing.